Hello everyone. Welcome to another TCFilms photo editing session. And this time I will not make it as long. The image you are seeing on your screens was taken in Parrotsville, Tennessee in August of 2016. Me and my wife were down visiting some close friends, and they took us up a spot just above their house where this this lookout is right here. But there was a house that had burnt down, and what you're looking at here is the trees that were closest to the house. It's not fall. These trees are dead, or the branches and the leaves all got pretty well toasted in the fire. Luckily, it didn't spread and go down in there on the rest of the trees. But anyway, we're going to do a little editing on this one in Lightroom this time. We're not going to. I was in Luminar AI when I did my last edit, but this one we're going to be in Lightroom. I'm in the Develop module, and I've been using Lightroom many years. This is version 10, and I've been using it since version 4. So however many years, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years maybe. But what I'll usually do right off the bat, when I get the image in and I open it up into my Develop module, and I don't know why you can see these little triangles up here will turn on and off your clipping indicators, and it was blue indicating that there was some clipping in the blacks, which is no big deal because that's the shadows, and I like a little clipping in the shadows. But the first thing I do is go into lens correction. Now, when I imported this, whenever it was, however many years ago, this had already been enabled, the profile correction. So we'll turn it off, and you can see it took care of a little bit of barrel distortion on the edges here. You can watch and see what it does when I'll turn on that, and you can see it took it out. Now the Chromatic Aberration is color, and it's like on the fringes of things you may be able to see some like green, or along in this part of the image, or on things in the image you'll be some, there might be a little bit right there, but I think that took most of it out, or if there was any there at all. But we're zoomed in quite a lot. But that really didn't make no much of a difference, so really it don't matter whether I leave that on or off. And you can go into the manual and do some adjustments too, try any of that, but I don't usually fool with that unless I have to. After I make the lens correction, I'll go into the basic, and I think my white balance is okay. I'll check the white balance after I make the lens correction. Sometimes I'll hit auto and see if that makes any difference, which I don't think it did in that instance. And if you hit the backslash key on your keyboard, if you're in Lightroom, if you have Lightroom, you can see what you did, how it started, and then if you release it, it will go back to after your adjustments. So the auto white balance, I don't know if it made any much of a difference, and that's the daylight setting. And I think as shot, I like how I shot it. I was in manual, and if you hit the I key, you can see the information here was on August the 12th of 2016 at about 6:58, and this was when I had my Canon T5i camera. That was my beginner camera. I had a 24mm lens on, and for the wide angle. And after I check the white balance, I'll set a profile, and I usually use, on a landscape one, I'll just click on Adobe Landscape, and that that adds a little bit of contrast and a little bit of color to it. So I like what that did, and I'll leave it on that. And then I think the landscape is just a teeny tiny bit unlevel, you can see. So I'll go into the crop tool, which is R on your keyboard, or you can hit that icon there as a crop icon. And if I want to change the, I don't know, sometimes I'll go to 9:16 or 16:9. And then I'll go, since it's a landscape, I think I will put it at 16:9. And I'll also see if the auto feature will straighten that horizon for me, clicking on that. And it did, just a little tiny bit's all it needed. So we'll take and accept that by hitting the return key or the enter key. And then we'll start our edit. And after I make those adjustments, sometimes I'll click that auto button. And used to, back in the day when I first had Lightroom, the auto button was horrible. You'd click it and it'd look all flicked. It wouldn't, the colors would, it just didn't know what it was doing. But they've improved it a whole lot. So I'll usually click auto like that, and you can see it made some adjustments. It brought up the exposure some, highlights came down on the highlights, and brought out some of the clouds there. I also see a couple of lens spots, a little dust on my lens there, a couple spots there, but we'll take care of that in a bit. So that didn't do too bad of a job. Sometimes I'll leave it there. Sometimes I'll hit the Control Z and undo that and take another look at it again. You can also do presets, and I don't usually use presets, although I have made a few. There's a couple. Ansel Adams was a fantastic black and white photographer back in the day, and so these are a bunch of the settings he used in the way he filmed, or took pictures rather. But I don't usually use the presets either. I'll just come over here and make my own adjustments. On this one, one trick that I did learn to use instead of the auto. I think the auto button does the same thing as what I'm going to tell you that I do. I hold down the shift button on my keypad, and I double click exposure, and see that brought it up, which looks nice. I don't like using contrast. I'll have a tone curve, so I leave the contrast alone. I'll go to the highlights, and I hold down the shift key and double tap on the word highlights, and it brought them down. And sometimes if I bring it the rest of the way down, oh, it's going good, AJ. Thanks for asking, buddy. That's my son. I'll go down more with the highlights and see if I can bring out any more detail in that sky, and I like that. So I'll just leave them at 100. The shadows, I'll do the same. I hold in the shift and double click, and it lightened it up here. It brought open some shadows. I kind of like what it did there. Maybe that was a bit much to my eye, so I'll back that off just a little bit, maybe down to about 30. 30, 29, 30. Sometimes that just is up. There we go, 30. All right, and I'll hold on the shift, double click the whites. Now the better way actually to do the whites and the blacks, hold down your option, drag your slider to the right until you start to see it clip. You'll start to see some whites come in right there. It's starting to clipping. And I back it off until it's completely gone. And there's nothing. And then I let go. And that's how I leave it set. And the blacks, I hold down the option key and slide it down till I see some clipping coming to blacks. And you can see there's a whole lot of clipping coming in, and I don't like that much. So I back it off till you can see just, a little bit, maybe like that. And then I'll look and see, and that looks pretty good. So I like what that did. I should have actually probably went to the tone curve and did my, I set a custom S curve for it like that a little bit. And that did pretty good. And not much. And you can make adjustments to any of this, you know, if you want to come up or down in your shadows, and then the middles, your mid-tones, and then up here's your highlights. But for this photo, I'm going to leave it like that. I'll go back to the basic and maybe add some texture, which is, it's actually a clarity, or it adds a little bit of pizzazz to the image. And I'm liking that. About 14 clarity. You can work in, they work with each other. Clarity, I think, more on everything, and the texture is I think the texture button or slider gives you more detail in the smaller areas, the smaller detail areas. But I actually kind of like that. The dehaze, I don't see anything. You know, maybe back in there, way back in the horizon, if the dehaze will take any of that off. But I mean, that was a natural. It was there. So you can see what that does, and that does get rid of some of it, but it kind of looks fakey if you go crazy. So I don't use that a lot, because that haze was it was way, however many miles it is away from there, so it was a natural look. It was even there when I took the picture. So I don't use the dehaze unless it adds to where it don't look like you've done anything. If it makes it look fakey, I don't fool with it. So we double click and put that back on 0. Now I do add a little vibrance. I like vibrance in my photos. I don't usually go much over 20. And saturation, I'm not sure. That may be, sometimes I'll go actually negative saturation. And I think I like about -7 on that. And that's looking pretty good. Let's go up here and get rid of those dust bunnies on my lens there. So they have a tool here. Click there. The size, you can see and you can make it just about as big as the your blemish there. And so I just click once, and let it take that out, and it did a pretty good job. And we'll click that one and get that out of there. And that removed that one too. So that's looking good. And I'm debating on whether or not if I want to use a gradient to bring back, I don't know, any more of this detail. I don't know if a gradient would work, or if I could bring out some more of the blue with the hue saturation. I don't know. I just don't know. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Let's try some of that. We'll get this is a little button you click, and you can get into an area, go to an area you want to change, and it will see that color, and it will only affect that color where you have your mouse pointer at. And then you just hold down and drag, and I want to drag up to increase the blues a little. Now that you can see my sliders, they're sliding up, they're sliding to the right. Maybe they're increasing the saturation of that a little bit. Maybe go a little more. That's looking, that don't look too bad. I'm thinking I like that. One thing that I noticed a buddy of mine doing on YouTube with his landscapes, he'll come with the temperature and he'll add a little tint in the magenta area, and he says it does. I kind of like that. Not too much though, because the sky wasn't, it wasn't magenta, but it does add a little interest, I think. When you're doing your photos, editing your photos the way I do it, to my eye, is what my eye likes and what's pleasing to me and how I think it looks. Because there's no rules, you know. I mean, as long as you don't go overboard. The sun was over here, so you can tell the light's coming from the left. It's on the left side of this tree bark here. So I'll just I think I like that. And you can hit the backslash key to get an idea of the it will take you back to no adjustments, and you can see what it started like. And I'll just hold it down, and there's what I started with, and there's what it is right now, and that's looking good. Tone curve, I already added a little S curve, and then I'll go to color grading, and I love the new color grading tool they added. These little wheels you can use, or you can do them separately. You can put them up separately. This is the shadows here. So down in here, sometimes I like to see a blue tint in the shadows, but you know, I don't know if it's really noticeable in this image, but we'll do it, and you guys can take a look. If you watch the shadows, and I'm using complementary colors. Now see, that saturation is all the way into the blue. It's saturated as far as it'll go, which is a bit much, but you can sure tell it added blue in the shadows and just about everywhere else. But I'll back off the saturation, and I'll use the slider here. And using the option key too in there, but I'm not too familiar with the option key. Allows you another way to make some adjustments if you hold the option key down, but I just use the sliders, and I think that's going to be about good for the saturation and the shadows. And we're going to go to the highlights. Oh, that's the global there. We won't mess with that. And we're going to go to the highlights, and the complementary of blue is the yellow, or the over here in this. It's opposite of what I had in there, and we can see what that did, which is too much, saturated a bit much. So I'll back off the saturation to what my eye likes. And I think about there. Looks nice. And we'll turn it on and off. There's the before. I made the adjustments and the color grading. And there's the after. See, and it's real subtle. It's almost like you can't tell which is what I like. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that looks nice. Before and after the color grade. So I'm pleased with that. And if you wanted to go down and play with the hue, saturation, luminance, you can do that here too for individual colors. And since I used that tool there, it brought up the blues, so that looks nice. You might want to try a little bit more, maybe about 30. Yeah, that looks some better. Another neat little thing you can do, well, that sometimes I do in my images with the texture and the clarity. I have to remember what they were on, 14 and 9. If you go the opposite way, you give it this ethereal, foggy blur, real. So we'll do it, and you can see what it does to the image. It just makes everything glow, and it gives it a soft. See what that did? Look at the clouds there, and the clarity will give it even more if you back that the other way. Some people call that an Orton effect. There was a photographer, I think his name was Michael Orton, I think. Might be wrong on his first name. But for this image, I just wanted to show, because sometimes I like to do that and it looks really cool. But this one we're just going to keep at about 14, and I think that was at about 9. 8 or 9 there. Looks good. We're going to keep that like that. Vibrance and saturation, I think I made those adjustments already. They look pretty good. My tone curve, color grading, detail. If we go in and we see if there's any noise in the image, which there may be a little bit in the clouds. This was a crop sensor camera, T5i, I think I mentioned that. And sometimes, though entry-level cameras is what they're known as, they don't give you the best as far as the dynamic range goes. And but you can't even really tell. But since I know there's a little bit there, I'm gonna give it some noise reduction of about 30, and that usually takes care of it. Sharpening, I'll give it a little sharpening too, maybe about 40. And that's looking nice. And there's the before I added the detail to it, and after, yeah, that took out some of the noise. Took out most of the noise. That little T5i camera, Canon, I really cut my photographer teeth on that camera. I loved it. Traded it in for a full frame though. After all those, the very last thing I do sometimes is put a vignette on it, but in this instance I'm not sure what that would do, since the image goes all the way over to the end here, and I'm not sure if I like a vignette. We'll try one and see. Can't hurt. There's a whole big, there's the big vignette there. We don't do that. Neither do we go the opposite way either. So what that does, we go very easy with one if I do add one. What I'll do sometimes, I'll use a gradient, a circular round gradient, and I'll add a vignette using that, but that's okay, I guess. Be a little more. I mean, what the gradient, what they do, what the vignette does, it kind of makes you focus your eyes into the center of the image, which, you know, these clouds are interesting to see here, and of course the horizon, but these trees here are really foreground. They add a lot of foreground, I think, to it in this tree here. So I think that might be it. Although someone was telling me that the calibration tool, and I haven't used a whole lot of this to do anything with. What does that do? Oh, it's tinting, adding a tint to it there. Don't know if I like it. Maybe I'll play with that in another image and get better with using the calibration tool. But that's going to be about it for this photo. Thanks for watching, and I'll try to add another video on me editing. I have another photo editing software. It's called On1 Photo Raw that I've practically quit using, but it's a good photo editing. It's good photo editing software. If you're interested in me doing one of them, okay. My wife, she went to see her father, and she just had a text come in that she got there okay. So that's what that was up in the corner. I should have turned my notifications off. But anyway, they wasn't too bothersome. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Be safe. Be well. And we'll see you in the next video. Peace.